Thank you.
Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryamtam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We are continuing our study of the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. We have come to that stage of transition where Krishna is giving like a flow chart of the different levels of bhakti. There includes a very controversial verse also. And then from the 12th verse, from 13th verse onwards, the last few verses are the beautiful verses which are very similar to the Sthita Prajna or the Para Bhakta. We'll begin with Dr. Sandhya Ravi, verse 7. Dr. Sandhya, please.
Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Chapter 12, verse 7. In this chapter, Swami Param helps us understand the meaning of Bhakti Yoga by dispelling certain misconceptions. First, that it's not a sadhana by itself, but a composite of karma, upasana, and jnana yoga. A person has to ascend the 5 steps of Sakama Karma Anushtana, Nishkama Karma Anushtana, Ekarupa Ishvara Dhyana, Anekarupa Ishvara Dhyana, and then only, aim for Jnana Yogyata, to inquire into the nature of the Nirguna Brahman. So essentially, all these things put together constitutes Bhakti Yoga. And once the person has gone up these steps, then the Yogyata for inquiry into Nirguna Brahman happens. A quick recap, because the verses 6 and 7 together are the ones which have a reassurance from Lord Krishna. The chapter opens with Arjuna questioning the Lord as to which of the two is superior. Is it the worshipper of the God with form and attributes, or the worshipper of the formless, attributeless Brahman? In verse 2, Lord Krishna replies a very intelligent response. He declares that the worshipper of God with form and attributes is superior. But the Nirguna Bhaktas attain me, he says. In verses 3 and 4, they describe the characteristic of the Nirguna Brahman and declare that Nirguna Bhakta attains Brahman. Verse 5 shows that worship of the unmanifest is difficult for one who is centered in the body. That is, one who has Deha Abhimana. So when Krishna says this, sincere seekers like us are perplexed, we are in a quandary, and just as we are wondering what we are supposed to do. If Jnana Yoga is difficult, verses 6 and 7 come with an assurance of the Lord that he will personally come to rescue the devotee who, surrendering all actions to him, constantly and exclusively thinks of him. So Lord Krishna here gives a solution to overcome the difficulty of practicing Nirguna Upasana. Come down a step lower, he says, to Saguna Ishvara Upasana. The Virat and Vishwa Ishvara, which was described in the previous chapter, chapter 11, and Vishnu Sahasranama Dhyana Shloka also says this, Tribhuvana Vapusam Vishnu Misham Namami. So having said in verse 6 that those who worship me, renouncing all the actions in me, regarding me as the supreme goal, meditating on me with single-minded devotion, he says in verse 7, Teshamaham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami na chirat partha maya avishita chetasam. So for them whose minds are set on me, I become the savior, O Partha, as quickly as possible to save them from the ocean of samsara. Now looking to the word meaning, Tesham, it is for them. Who are they? The Avishita Chetasam. That is those whose minds are set on me. I, Aham Bhavami Samudharta. That is, I become the savior. Saving them from what? Mrityu Samsara Sagarat. Out of the ocean of samsara. And when? Nachirat, before long. So here, Mrityu Samsara Sagarat is the ocean of samsara. And he says, Aveshita Chetasam. Here, this refers to the loving devotees worshipping the Saguna Ishvara, who in the previous verse are spoken of as having their mind and intellect merged in the Ishvara. So Krishna says, these people are special to me. They are steeped in Nishkama Bhakti, and they are the Jignasu and the Ananya Bhaktas who are mentioned in the Chaturveda Bhaktas in chapter 7. Therefore, I will, Tesham Bhavami Samudharta. I will become their savior and rescue them from Mrityu Samsara Sagara, the ocean of the finite mortality-ridden samsara. And how soon can we expect this? Will we get moksha right away? Na chirat, he reassures, before long. I will make them fit for Jnana Yoga. And this is described in the next verse, how he is going to do it. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sandhya, for giving us a recap of the whole ladder of bhakti from Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Nishkama, Sakama, and Upasana through Ekarupa and Vishwarupa, and finally the most difficult being the Nirguna Ishvara Jnanam. And Krishna is coming down that ladder. Thanks for recapping all of that, and let us see how Sachin, please explain the next verse.
Hari Om. The 8th verse. Mayeva mana adatsva, mai buddhim niveshaha, nivashyasi mayeva ata ardvam na samshaya. So Krishna concludes the second or the fourth rung of ladder in the last discussion. Here he says, Arjuna, forget about the Nirguna part of mind. You just focus on Mai, the Vishwa Rupa Ishvara Upasana part of me. He also says, Adatsva Manaha. He says, fix your emotional mind onto me, because I am the uninterrupted power supply which will be needed whenever your emotional part is down. This is so very true that from the last 3 months, we are doing this satsanga thanks to Dr. Hegde's classes and the teaching of Swami Paramarthananda, that I just can't fathom how emotionally I would have been disturbed because of the COVID crisis. And only because of this uninterrupted Prabhu Vachana supply, I will call it, that I am okay today. Coming back to the verse, Krishna in this verse is emphasizing that you do not actually seek everything from this world or the people in this world, because they are limited. They are not going to be there when you need the most. So you always learn to lean on me, the Vishwa Rupa Ishvara part, the Saguna part of me. And not only that, he says, Mai Buddhim na Vishaya. So if your intellect, which is always going to ask for rational reasoning, if you are not satisfied, then you should be satisfied not only from the emotional part, but also the intellectual part. So how do you do it? Our scriptures have already told us, and that is by the continuous reading of the scriptures, you will have the conviction and your devotion will be never shaken. So understanding the scriptural studies, you will be always be strong in your devotion towards the Lord, the Vishwa Rupa Upasana part. And how do we get the conviction? That has been already said in the last chapters, like especially 7th chapter, where Lord was defined as the Karanam part of the creation, that is the both Nimitta and Upadana Karanam, where the spider example was given. We know that by that product and the cause are one and the same. Bhinnam Bhavitam Na Arhati. That was also discussed in 7th chapter, where you know that no effect can be separated from the cause. So when I handle the ornaments, I know that I'm actually seeing the gold in the cause. When I see the furniture, I know I'm seeing the wood in it. Similarly, when I'm handling this world, I should be able to see the God in Ishvara part in it. And if anyone is not convinced, then continue the studies. If you are still not convinced, you have to still continue the studies. But someone will ask, how long I should continue? Swamiji says you have to continue, not this Janma, even the next Janma if you are not convinced. And he lovingly and caringly, Swamiji says that you should get a better teacher because he has failed to teach you in this Janma. Once you have finally understood that the Vishwarupa Ishvara Upasana is important, you don't have to worry that I will be away from the God. I will not be near him when it is required. He is in and through everywhere. So we will have that Nivashyasya Mayi Eva. He will be always dwelling in you. That is for sure. Adha Urdhvam, by the practice which you will do, he will always be in you. Na samshaya, without any doubt. But suppose you find this difficult, because we all know to have this mindset, we should have an expanded mind that we include each and everything in the Vishwarupa part. If we will have some, we will always say, I can include everything, the good part in Vishwarupa, but I have some excluding some people. So imagine if everyone excludes some people, there would be no list remaining to see as God in the Vishwarupa. Therefore, this Upasana is extremely difficult. Then if people say this is difficult, then Krishna has the answer. Okay, do not worry. Then go to the next rung of ladder, the third step, that is in the 9th verse. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sachin, for a nice explanation.
Not coming. Come here.
Hello. Thank you, Sachin. We are going down that staircase, coming from the most difficult to the relatively more easier. Thanks to Swami Paramarthananda's explanations, these verses are understandable for us. So if we are not able to understand, we need to go back to Swamiji's explanation. So we are coming down the rung of the ladder of bhakti, so that you practice a level of bhakti that is comfortable for you, but ultimately come to Nirguna Ishvara Jnanam, that is Krishna's vision. Dr. Sandhya Nanjundaya, if you can please explain the 9th verse for us.
Hari Om. The 9th verse is Ata Chetan Samadhatum Na Shaknoshi Mayusthiram Abhyasa Yogena Tato Mam Ichchaptam Dhananjayaha. What Bhagavan is trying to tell us is that there is no fear and we do not have to worry about it. If we are unable to do Vishwarupa Upasana, then definitely we can fix our mind on Ekarupa Upasana. And he gives 2 important messages here to Arjuna. The first one is that he talks about Ekarupa Upasana, and secondly, he talks about Abhyasa Yogena or Abhyasa Yoga. Now let us look at this individually. Ekarupa means focusing on the personal God. Very easy for us. We are so identified with our body and mind. When we go to a temple, we see a supernatural, say Vishnu or God, who has 4 arms, many attributes, divine attributes, and we have heard a lot of the Leelas from the various Puranas, Mahabharata, and so on. So it is easy for us to look at God, this individual or personal God, our Ishta Devata, sitting in our heart and our meditating on him there. Upasana does not include any physical puja. It is concentrating on the physical form in the Ekarupa form, as also his attributes, his Leelas, and so on. Now, sometimes people may not want a physical form of the Lord, but may look at a symbol like Om, Shri Chakra, and all that, which is also acceptable and is called Pratika worship. In the Ekarupa form, the other thing that we have to establish is that we can also look at ourselves having a relationship with God. We can be his devotee, we can be his servant, we can be a child of God. And so it is very easy for an individual to practice Ekarupa Darshana, eventually purifying our mind, and then again leading to Vishwarupa Upasana also. The second part of this verse is extremely important, that is Abhyasa Yoga. That means constant practice. Now, we have also always heard the word that practice makes perfect, and this is what is manifested here. As we all know, our mind has a very limited time span, very limited attention, and immediately starts wandering to the various other worldly desires when we start to meditate. And this is a unique, singular problem for all of us. Now, the problem is that when our mind starts wandering, sometimes we don't even know that the mind is wandering for a long time. And then after a while, we realize that, and we have to pull the mind back. And this happens repeatedly during meditation. And therefore, this is a normal phenomenon. we don't have to worry about it. But how do we get rid of this problem is what we have to see. Now, we have to realize that mind control is important. And it is so important that Bhagavan itself has said in Gita 6:26, Yato Yato Nischarate Manam Chalam, and all that. Drawing the restless mind easily from all objects repeatedly back to focus is the way to go. Also, Gita 6:35 says, Asamshayam Mahabaho Manodur Nigraham Chalam Abhyasayena to Kaunteya, and so on. And he's always telling us, practice, practice, pull the mind back till it becomes an effortless type of thing. Now, there is one place that we can use here, or one trick that we can use here. Our mind is actually divided into two. One is the regular mind, and the second one is our intellect or buddhi, which is our discriminative power, our power of self-will and things like that, which is very strong. So when we sit for meditation, what we have to do is divide the mind into two. Our regular mind is focusing, but our intellect or buddhi is like a watchdog for the regular mind. As soon as the mind starts wandering, intellect pulls it back. This has to be done again and again and again till it becomes such a habit that the mind stops wandering anymore. Then upasana becomes effortless, it becomes automatic, there is no wandering thoughts, and actually the water, like pouring oil from one vessel to the other, the mind is increasing flow of upasana only. And this eventually purifies the mind and leads to Vishvarupa Upasana. Concluding, Patanjali 113 also makes the same statement, Tatra Shitau Yatna Abhyasaha, and so on. So Abhyasa is one thing that we have to practice for as long as the time it requires for our mind to concentrate, get purified, and go to the next step, which is Vishvarupa Upasana. And this is what I think is very easy for us to do. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, madam, for a very nice explanation of this verse. We will go to Dr. Raksha, verse 10, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Shri Krishna has recommended Jnana Yoga followed by Abhyasa Yoga in the earlier verses. If a sadhaka is unable to follow the yoga of repeated practice, what should he do? Anticipating this question, the Lord says in this verse 10, Abhyasepya samartosi matkarma paramo bhava madarthamapi karmani kurvan siddhim avapsyasi. Abhyase api asamartosi. If you are unequal even to the pursuit of such practice, mat karma paramaha bhava. Be intent to perform actions for me. Madartham karmani kurvan api. Even if you perform such actions for my sake, siddhim avapsyasi. You will attain self-realization, perfection. It is known to all of us that it was in no way difficult for Arjuna to fix his mind on God or realize him through Abhyasa Yoga. Lord asks him not to be in despair and suggests an alternative. For different types of practices are suited for different individuals due to difference in their temperament. Mat karmaha is the key word in this verse. Mat karma krit was explained in verse 55 of chapter 11. Mat karma krit mat paramo mad bhaktaha. The literal meaning of mat karma in Shankara Bhashya goes this way. Madarte karma mat karmaha. Tat karoti iti mat karma krita. Mat karma denotes all actions which are performed only for the sake of God and are connected with His service or adoration, in which sadhaka has no trace of self-interest or any attachment. Such a sadhaka who recognizes God and God alone as his supreme refuge and highest goal and goes on constantly performing through mind, speech, and body. He performs sacrifices, charity, and penance as ordained by the scriptures with utmost reverence and love only for the pleasure of God. Lord Krishna says he attains Siddhi. This practice is in no way inferior to other practices. Prahalada, one of the greatest devotees of Lord Vishnu, was asked by his father Hiranyakashipu about what he learned in school. He replied, one should serve Ishvara and God, and by making every act into an act of worship, as we see in Navavida Bhakti described in Srimad Bhagavatam. When we submit our ego into the altar of Vishnu or Ishvara, the sense of ego dissolves and we become qualified to practice Abhyasa Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Aksha, for a crisp and a nice explanation of this verse. We go to Dr. Srinivas. Please go ahead. Verse 11, Dr. Srinivas Nuti. Dr. Srinivas, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hello, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Very well. Very well. Please go ahead.
Athai tadapyashaktosi kartum madhyogamaashritaha sarvakarma phalatyagam tatah kuru yatatmavan. Coming to the first word, Athai tadapyashaktosi. We have 5 words in this combination word. Ataha etat api ashaktaha asi. Ataha, if etat means this, ashaktaha asi means even if you cannot do even this one. Kartum means to do this. Balaha patitum ichhati. That means boy is patitum means voduvudakke. That's how the meaning is. So kartum means maduvudakke. That is the meaning of kartum. Madhyoga mashritaha. The Sanskrit equivalent word is sarva karma samarpanam. So almost the same as the previous shlokam. And next word is sarva karma phalatyagam. That is not interested or dedicate the fruits of actions. Tataha means then. The first line we have ataha. So for that, if then. So that ataha is if. Then this tataha gets anvaya with this ataha. So tataha is then. Kuru means do. So yatatmavan means niyata chittaha. That means a stable mind, like that. So this is the last step which Krishna tells. So first you do Abhyasa Yoga or Jnana Yoga, then Abhyasa Yoga, then if not Bhakti Yoga, then if not at least dedicated actions, then the last step is the Sarva Karma Phalatyagam. So here, one thing which you want to elaborate is Sarva Karma Phalatyagam. What is the meaning of this word Sarva Karma Phalatyagam? So should we not expect any results at all, or should we not take any salary? Should we reject our paycheck? So that's the issue here. So this does not mean don't take salary or don't refuse to take the paycheck. So what does it mean is, so karma phalam means what we are going to get in future. We do works at present and expect the fruits in future. So karma phalam, don't expect the karma phalam means don't worry about the future. So that's the meaning here. So why we should not worry about the future is all our energies get wasted in our anxieties and fears of a horrid future which has not yet come and which may not at all materialize. So Krishna urges us only to curb these wasteful imaginations and to live vitally, sincerely, fully and dynamically in the present. So a worker who works only for higher wages, less number of works and with maximum inefficiency. So this is what Krishna condemns. So it is this modern attitude which we see reflected in Krishna's condemnation of all those who work in the world merely for the fruit. So what does it mean is we should keep doing our work, take minimum, does not mean that we should keep on expecting more results. So whatever we get it, we should take and we should keep doing our works. So Swami Param also says, if you cannot do even this 5th step, so in Hindu religion, even if you cannot do this 5th step, we do not condemn them. So Swami Param says, wish you better luck in the next life. So that's how, so the last step ends. And even if you cannot do this, there is again a chance. So chances keep coming and coming. So this kind of repeated chances are there only in this kind of in our religion. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Srinivas. As always, we enjoy listening to how you're able to break up the words and explain the words so clearly. And this time you gave us a nice message of the verse. We had both in the very short time. We always allow you to give a little more time because you focus on grammar and other issues. Thank you. We proceed to Dr. Vishwas. Dr. Vishwas, this is a difficult verse. Let us see how you'll explain it to us.
Hopefully I'm audible and visible.
Very clear, visible also.
The verse goes, Shreyo hi gnanam abhyasat jnanad dhyanam vishishyate dhyanat karma phalatyagat tyagat shantir anantaram. The Anvaya goes that better than the ritualistic practice is knowledge, and better than knowledge is meditation. Better than meditation is actually the renunciation of fruits of one's action. And as soon as you do that, the peace immediately follows. We have been listening to each one of the different methods that are being told by Krishna right now towards the Bhakti Yoga. Now, he is sort of grading it that which is better than what. So we have listened to what is Abhyasa. And in this verse, when he says Abhyasa, what we need to understand, it is just a mechanical practice or a ritualistic practice. So in Kannada, we always say it is called as Appa Hakadaladmara. So something is being done by so many people telling that this is what the fruit you're going to get out of it. And you keep repeating it without actually knowing the meaning or which are actually having the intention of doing it properly. So that is the mechanical practice. So if you're doing the mechanical practice, it is of no avail. What is better than mechanical practice is actually to gain the spiritual knowledge. So once you gain the spiritual knowledge, then you actually understand that what you are doing towards, or what all the practices that you are doing towards right now is towards the Chitta Shuddhi. So it is the purification of the mind that we will attain by doing all the practices that we are doing, which in turn will help us in getting the knowledge properly. Just by merely having the knowledge or merely knowing that this is what it is it enough? So we know that just by having the information, we don't get transformed. For the transformation to occur, we need to have the Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana on it. This is basically where we go towards the Dhyana. Dhyana is actually just Gnana is not enough, but Dhyana is actually going to elevate it by actually inculcating the Gnana that you are having into yourself, so that you are able to do much, you are able to understand the process much better. By practically controlling the mind through meditation, we actually also begin to develop detachment from worldly pleasures, because we start to get to know what is Sat and Asat. And by practicing Nididhyasana, our mind develops a measure of quality of detachment. So once we are able to understand that the world is not ours, and we are starting the process of detachment, the detachment is not just towards the word, it is also towards the actions, or rather the fruits of your actions. That is the karma phala and karma phala tyaga. So as we are able to achieve this state in which we are able to renounce the fruits of our action, which is beautifully explained by Dr. Srinivas in the previous verse, at that time, immediately at that time, what we achieve is peace. So with the peace on our mind, we will be able to go again, progress better towards the salvation pathway. I'll just come back to the verse and I'll go word by word meaning, but I'll be breaking it in the manner that it is easier for us to understand. So the first line or the first part goes, Abhyasat hi gnanam shreyaha. So just Abhyasa here is the practice, Gnanam is the knowledge, Shreyaha is better. So better than just the practice is the Gnana. Gnanat Dhyanam Vishishyate. Compared to Gnana, the meditation or the Dhyana is actually better, Vishishyate. Dhyanat Karma Phalatyagaha. Even better than Dhyana is the renunciation of the fruits of your action. And Tyagat Shantir Anantaram. As soon as you are able to renounce this, you will immediately find peace. Thank you. Hello?
Thank you. I had difficulty in unmuting. Thank you, Vishwas, for giving us a very clear explanation. Swamiji uses a lot of words like knowledge, meditation, and so on. And all these terms, in spite of the great teacher that he is, still remain a verse that is very confusing. And Swamiji finally says that this verse can be, if you can eliminate also, it is okay. Because if you're trying to break the meaning from the way we understand, it can be a little confusing. We have now come to the end of this portion, and from now on, the whole there is a shift in this whole chapter, which is very similar to chapter 2, when Arjuna asks Krishna about a Sthita Prajna. So you have a beautiful set of verses which need to be remembered and understood, because these are the qualities of a Parama Bhakta, the highest Bhakta. To explain this, Vani, verse 13, please.
Namaste, sir. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The verse goes like this. Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitra karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankaraha samadukka sukha kshami. So till now, as Doctor said, till 12th verse, we have the explanation. Lord Krishna has talked about the sadhanas to be followed by the seeker. That is the stages of bhakti. The person goes through 5 stages of Bhakti Yoga, as Dr. Sandhya and Dr. Hegde also mentioned. The Sakama Pradhana Karma Yoga, Nishkama Pradhana Karma Yoga, and the Ishta Devata Upasana, Vishwarupa Upasana, and then the Nirguna Ishvara Gnana. Then the person becomes a Gnani. So who is this Gnani? Gnani is the one who knows God is the formless truth behind this formed universe. Paramatma and Jivatma are one and the same. Like, for example, the water and the wave, there are 2 words, and both the substance of the water, the wave and the ocean is water. The same way, the substance of the Vastu behind Jivatma and the Paramatma is one. Therefore, he is the Gnani, is called the highest Bhakta, and he is the Advaita Gnani. So here in this verse, the Lakshanas of the Advaita Gnani, that is, as Dr. just now mentioned, Sthita Prajna Lakshanas, and the Parabhakta Lakshanas or the Jivan Mukta Lakshanas are discussed. So the first word is Adveshta Sarva Bhutanam. So the Gnani or a realized person does not hate any being in this universe. Freedom from hatred, which is a very, very important qualification. Shankara says, even though a person may cause him some trouble or pain, the Gnani does not entertain this. He has no hatred or ill will towards that person because he sees all creatures as himself. The next one is Maitrihi. Maitrihi, Gnani is a friend to all. That is Maitri. So it's a friend to everyone. Bhartrihari in his Niti Shatakam defines a friend as a person who is a friend is one who guides when I'm going wrong. Because we never know our own mistakes. A person has to, somebody has to show us, because for example, we do not know the color of our eyes. Somebody has to tell us. And he gives an example. A lamp will throw light everywhere except underneath. So there's darkness there everywhere. Always. So this way, we have our own weaknesses. A friend is the one who guides and corrects us when we are wrong. Karunaha, the one who has a lot of compassion. When the other person is in distress, he has compassion. It is also called empathy. So you put yourself in the other person's shoes and you go through the pain. You identify yourself with the other person's pain. You identify yourself with the other person, that is called tadatma bhava. You cannot withstand another person's pain. Therefore, I really go out to help spontaneously. Then nirmamaha. Nirmamaha is one who is free from the sense of mind and sense of ownership, including his body-mind sense complex. That Gnani knows he is Atma, that is, he is Asangaha. Atma is like a space which is not related or connected to anything. Therefore, Atma is Nitya Sambandha Rahita, free from all relations and association. And since I am the Asanga Atma, I am not connected to anything. Therefore, I cannot claim anything as mine. Therefore, Nirmamatvam is owning up that Asanga Atma Swarupa. Then Nirahankaraha. When I have got ownership and identification with the external world, it is called Mamakara. And when I have got ownership and identification with our own Sharira, that Sharira Traya, that's Sula, Sukshman, Karana Sharira, that ownership is called Mamakara. So identification with body-mind complex is Ahankara. Identification with the external objects and beings, identification with body-mind complex is Ahankara. Identification with external objects and beings is Mamakara. So this Ahankara and Mamakara support each other's existence. A Gnani looks upon everything as belonging to Ishvara. He believes he is only a trustee to look after Ishvara's property. His vision is Aham Idam Sarvam. I am all this. The individual I sense is gone. The one who sees Dukha and Dukkha as equal, the one who is equanimous. Dukha and Dukkha is always a person, situation or object which is external. But for a Gnani, both Sukha and Dukkha are equal since it does not depend on external factors for happiness, security and peace. And Kshami, one who has the Titiksha or forbearance. A Gnani has a quality of Kshama or forgiveness which is natural to him. He is accommodative. Namaste, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vani, for a nice explanation of the opening verses of a Parabhakta. One more similar verse we have, and Indu, please go ahead.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Santushtaha satatam yogi yatatma drida nishchayaha mayarpita mano buddhihi yomad bhakta samepriyaha. Samad bhaktaha, that devotee of mine, arpita mano buddhihi, whose mind and intellect are fixed upon me, yaha satatam santushtaha, who is ever contented, yogi, calm, peaceful, tranquil, yathatma, self-restrained, self-controlled, not emotional, drida nishchayaha, with clean knowledge, priyaha me, he is dear to me. That devotee of mine, whose mind and intellect are fixed upon me, and who is ever contented, calm and peaceful, self-restrained, and with clear knowledge, he is dear to me. So, Santushtaha, the one who has discovered fullness, one who does not lack anything in life, psychologically or intellectually, knowledge or emotion-wise, this inner Purnatvam is called Santoshaha. And the person who has got all this is Santushtaha. Here we have the 55th verse in the chapter 2 of our Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna tells about Sthita Prajna, the person with wise wisdom, steady wisdom. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyevatmana tushtaha sthita prajnasta dochyate. Lord says, when a man completely casts off all the desires of the mind and is satisfied in the self, by the self, then he is said to be a man of steady wisdom, that is Sthita Prajna. Here, people may ask, if I am already contented, how will I work in the world? If no one works for the progress of the society, what will be the plight? But we should understand here that only contented people contribute to the society. Therefore, the entire life of a Gnani, it is dedicated to contributing to others, time, energy, knowledge, everything he is ready to share with others. Therefore, when a person is Santushtaha, he is also Santoshaha. Satatam Santushtaha, eternal contentment, the one who is a yogi and has gnana. Here, yoga means moksha or gnanam. Yoga means to unite, to bring together. Through knowledge alone, the distance between Jivatma and Paramatma is removed, which is caused by ignorance. Like a child sleeping on the lap of its mother, dreams it has missed the mother and starts crying. The mother wakes up the child and pacifies. When the child realizes that it is only the lap of the mother that it is sleeping on and it was just a dream, it becomes happy as usual. Therefore, the distance here is caused by only ignorance. The distance is removed by knowledge. Therefore, knowledge alone unites Jivatma and Paramatma, and knowledge is the uniting process. Now, the Lord speaks of the characteristics of the highest Bhakta. He is the one who has gone through all the 5 levels of Bhakti Yoga, which is nothing but Gnana Yoga. He is also called a Parabhakta and Sthira Bhakta. Satatam Santushtaha. He is a Gnani, Purna Ishvara. Purna Ishvara cannot be away anywhere else because he is infinite and all-pervading. Purna means Satyam, Anandam, Anantam. A Gnani here has realized this. Therefore, he is Atmani Eva Atmanaha Tushtaha, Samyak Tushtaha, meaning I do not miss anything in life. Gnani is also active. As Lord Krishna says in the 3rd chapter, Saktaha karmanya vidvamso yatha kurvanti bharata puryad vidvams tata saktaha chikeshur lokasangraham. Thus, to sum up, the 2 verses of the above 11, they have 11 noble qualities. They are indicated in the above 2 verses. Lord here says, a Gnani Bhakta is ever contented, finds flawless, infinite joy in himself, whether he obtains even the means of his bodily sustenance or not, steadfast in his meditation, self-controlled, and firm in his resolve, even centered in Lord. Such a devoted yogi is dear to Lord Krishna, says. The essence of this verse is, I am dear to the man of wisdom and he is dear to me. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Indu, for a nice explanation of another very beautiful verse. So the next class, that is on Wednesday, we continue the similar to a Sthita Prajna or the Parabhakta qualities. So we will have another 6 verses that will describe those qualities of a Parabhakta. And then there will be the introduction to the first 1 or 2 verses of the 13th chapter. The 13th chapter, the moment we come in, there is a change in the Shatkam. And when there is a change in the Shatkam, and especially when you come to the Charama Shatkam, the Antima Shatkam, you will see it is much more difficult to understand. So right now we need to start looking and preparing for those verses of the 13th chapter, which are extremely important, where Jnana Yoga part comes in. Also, these verses, all the verses of the Gita are beautiful, but these particular verses of the 12th chapter are particularly beautiful, which we need to learn by heart. There was a suggestion which came from one of our seekers, Neeta, that while we are focusing so much on knowledge, why not we focus on Gita chanting? So we thought from next week onwards, Monday and Wednesday classes, instead of starting at 6:50, we'll start at 6:45. And from 6:45 to 6:55, for 10 minutes, we'll begin by chanting the verses from verse 1 onwards, till how many ever verses we can do in the first 10 minutes. So that will be our plan, that over a period of time, we will become more fluent in Gita chanting also. With that, we conclude today's classes. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ओम शांति शांति शांति।